Shabbat Shalom. We begin our prayer this morning with the words of Modeh Ani.
Modeh Ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shehechezarta b'nishmati v'chemla, Rabba emunatecha, Modeh Ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shehechezarta b'nishmati v'chemla, Rabba emunatecha, Rabba emunatecha, Rabba emunatecha.
Good morning, Barbara. Shabbat Shalom.
Good morning, Rabbi.
And good morning to all you out there in Zoom land. And we are glad that you are joining us, whether you are joining us on our Facebook page or joining us on the Emanu streaming page. We are thrilled that you are here. We are going to be sharing some of the prayers on the screen as we do every week. If you have a prayer book, or I know that in the Facebook chat, Jason put the link to a flip book, an online version of the prayer book. I will also do my best to call out page numbers from time to time so that we can all be praying together. I encourage you to pray loudly and joyously. If you are a person who is afraid to sing out loud because you are worried that you are singing off key, now is the time where you get to sing as loudly as you want, because the only people who can hear you already know that. So we hope that you will pray with us. And we are going to continue our service this morning with Ma Tovu, which is found in the prayer book on page 74. And the words of Ma Tovu come from this week's Torah portion, from Parshat Balak. This week we have a double portion, and we'll talk more about Parshat Balak and Ma Tovu later. But I do think that as we start to pray this morning, and as we sort of start to situate ourselves in the attitude of prayer, one of the ways that we might think about that is the experience of the prophet Balaam, who sets out to curse the Israelites, and instead, viewing their beautiful encampment, all that he can muster is words of praise. And I think that prayer is about transitioning ourselves from the posture where all we can think of is curses to a posture where all we can say is blessings. And so that's what we'll hold in our hearts, just like Balaam, as we sing Ma Tovu this morning, page 74.
ומקום משכן כבודך
We continue with a prayer for our bodies. No matter how well they are working, they have helped us to reach this day and this moment. So we pray together these words of Asher Yatzar. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware we would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and our strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofecho basar umafli la'asot. And now, having praised God for our bodies, we continue with a prayer for our souls and the breath that fills them with the words of Elohai Neshama.
Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi
We continue with the Nisim B'chol Yom, the blessings for daily miracles, as we do many weeks here on our streamed services. We are going to pause in the middle of these prayers to offer some prayers for miracles that you have experienced in recent days or today. So if you have a blessing for some miracle, something you're grateful for, that you can type into the Facebook chat. We will read it out loud when we come to that spot. So please start typing soon so we have something to read out loud when we come to that spot. Share a miracle with us, and we are going to continue with the Nisim B'chol Yom, these blessings for daily miracles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kifufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids.
Blessings from our own lives. I'll start. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. I got to bake challah with my daughter yesterday, and it was really fun. And on the Facebook chat, I am seeing that Darlene's grandmother tested negative for COVID, which we are happy to hear. And Jamie is grateful for the miracle of living in a free country and coming together to worship as we choose. And Deborah Robinson writes, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given me a better schedule, yay for sleep, a raise, and a promotion at work. Mazel tov and congratulations. And Timothy says he is grateful for his visiting sister and his mom. Barbara, do you have anyone you want to add? You're muted.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for meeting new friends even on Zoom.
Amen. For all of these miracles in our lives, for the miracles that are big and the miracles that are small, for the miracles we notice and the ones that slip past us, for the miracles we notice every day and the ones that come only rarely, for all of these things we all say, Amen. And we continue now with a few more blessings for daily miracles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me in the image of God. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me free. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor.
One more blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Having said our blessing for the study of Torah, we continue with a little bit of learning with Elu Divarim. Join me in reading in the English. These are the things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. And now we move on to the 150th Psalm, a psalm of joy and praise for God.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Kol הנשמה תהלליה, hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol הנשמה Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah,
We continue with Chatzi Kaddish, which is found on page 106 if you're following along in the prayer book.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעולמי יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל. שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, גם אירן מעלמה, ויאמרו אמן.
We continue with Baruch Hu as we invite you to rise in body or spirit, page 108. Join me in the Loeser or a prayer for the morning light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvorei choshech osei shalom uvorei et hakol hameir la'aretz v'ladarim alecha berachavim uvtuvo michadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit ma ra'abu ma'asecha Adonai kulam b'chochma asita melah ha'aretz kinyanecha Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha ve'al me'orei or she'asita yif'arucha selah. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir v'nizkech ulanu mehira le'oro. Baruch atah Adonai yotzer hameorot. And now a alternative Ahava Rabbah. O God, inspiration and guide for us all, you have spoken in 1,000 tongues for us to hear. In every land and every age, your children have heard you and imagined you in separate ways. And yet, O God, you are one, unifier of humanity. We give thanks for the sages and teachers who bring us understanding of your will. Gratefully, we recall the lawgivers and prophets, the psalmists and sages of Israel. And joyfully, we remember that from the dawn of Israel's life, we would turn to you and find purpose. May the teaching of our ancestors live in our minds and their passion for righteousness stir our hearts. Help us to live so that our daily conduct reveals the beauty and wisdom of your truth. Baruch atah Adonai habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
You may be seated as we continue with Ve'ahavta.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha vehayu hadvarim ha'ene asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al vavecha ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך ובביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lehiot lachem Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
A reading as we prepare for the Micha Mocha, which celebrates the Jewish Independence Day, the liberation from Egypt. And we think about the liberation that is still needed in this world as we prepare to sing our song of freedom. When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when to the last full measure of selfless devotion, we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives and we can begin to change the world. And then you live in our hearts and we, through righteousness, behold your presence. We continue with Micha Mocha, page 122.
Micha Mocha is a song about freedom. So I took a little freedom this morning with the melody for Micha Mocha. I think you'll recognize it and be able to sing with me. Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nidar ba'kodesh, no rati lo tosef ele, no ratehilo tosef ele, shira חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמחה על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדי חינומך, יהודה וישראל. גואלנו, אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
That last piece of Micha Mocha, Tzur Yisrael, some people have the custom of standing up on the third word of that prayer, Kuma, which means to rise. And so as we're preparing for the Amidah, some people have the custom of standing there instead of standing sort of here in the space between the end of Micha Mocha and the Amidah. And when I was in rabbinical school, when we had services every morning, I used to love that moment because some people were early, right? Like they did it right at the beginning of Tzur Yisrael because they would sort of jump the gun. And then a few more people stood up at Kuma, and then a few people stood up a little bit after Kuma because they remembered that they were supposed to stand up at Kuma and they saw all the people standing up. And so a few more people got up, and then the rest of us stood up at the end of Micha Mocha. And I always said that was the I am Spartacus moment of services, like just like one person and then three people and then 10 people. And that's a reference that some people will not get. And but it was I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the Amidah, which literally means the standing prayer. And I was, of course, thinking about Hamilton, because in addition to this being 4th of July weekend, it's also Hamilton weekend, Hamil film weekend. And I was thinking of that line that Alexander Hamilton asks Aaron Burr, if you stand for nothing, what will you fall for? And I think that this prayer and this moment in our service and in our world calls us to ask the question, what do we stand for? And what will we stand up for? And who will we stand up for? And I think it's a beautiful thing that built into our prayer is the act of standing for something. So as we prepare to rise for the Amidah, which begins on page 124, my encouragement is for an intention for this Shabbat is to ask yourself, what is it that you stand for? we stand for the Amidah.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, U'mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Vezrat Sarah. Ata Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Ata Rab Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, Umidom Melach, Melech Memit Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, Keshem shemakdishim, Oto b'shmei marom, Kakatuv al yad neviecha, V'kara ze el ze ve'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Meloch kol haaretz, Kevodo, Adir, Adirenu Adonai, Adonenu ma'adir, Shimcha bechol haaretz, Baruch Kevod Adonai Mimkomo. Echadu Eloheinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Moshienu, Ehu Yashmienu, Berachamav le'enei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohayich Zion ledor vador. Hallelujah. Ledor vador nagid God lecha, U'netzach netzachim kedushatcha nakdish, V'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush, Leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
A little Yismachu.
ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. מקדשי שירי שבת, כולם ישמעו ויתנו מדורך שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. זכר למעשה בראשית שבת, זכר למעשה בראשית שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת.
This next prayer for the holiness of Shabbat has been in our prayer book a long time, but I think has never been more resonant than it is now in the time of quarantine. And so I invite you to pray it with me. Where has the week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the accomplished task. Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time, contain the retreat of the hours and days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into a quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. We take a few moments now for silent prayer and gratitude. If you can't think of anything to say during this time, I encourage you to think of 5 things you're grateful for today. I promise it will change your life.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו
We continue with our short service for the reading of Torah, and to prepare ourselves, we pray a little Romamu.
Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu behar kodsho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu behar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romamu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romamu. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu behar kodsho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu behar kodsho.
So a couple of thoughts about this week's Torah portion. So this week we have a double portion, as I mentioned at the beginning of the service. This is Chukat Balak. If you are a person who studies some Torah during the week or studied in the morning by yourself and you looked up online what this week's Torah portion was, there's a chance you didn't know that it was Parshat Chukat Balak, that they were joint Parsha. This has to do with the fact that the Reform movement, because we only, in America, because we only observe it 7 days of a holiday, has been off since the end of Passover, and we are now getting back on with the rest of the Jewish world. It's complicated, so you're just going to have to take my word for it. But I'm going to talk about Balak, the second of those two parshiot. And that tells the story of Balak, this king who wants to defeat the Israelites, and the way he's going to do that is by hiring this sorcerer Balaam to curse them. And the story, which you may be familiar with, he attempts a couple of times to curse the Israelites, and each time what comes out of his mouth are blessings. So that is the story. And as I mentioned, it contains a very famous line that we have already prayed this morning. So I want to look at that to begin with. And I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see it. So Balaam has climbed to the top of this mountain. And it says, and Balaam looked up and saw Israel encamped tribe by tribe, and the Spirit of God came upon him, and taking up his theme, he said, word of Balaam, son of Beor, word of man whose eyes are true, word of him who hears God's speech, who beholds the vision of the Almighty, prostrate but with eyes unveiled. And then he says, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. How beautiful, how fair are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. And this is such a popular line that it got incorporated into our prayer service at the very beginning of our prayer service. And there's some debate amongst the rabbis about what it is that he is commenting on when he sees this. What causes him to say, Ma tovu ohalecha, how beautiful are your tents? And one sort of traditional interpretation is that he looks out and he sees that the way that the Israelites have arranged their tents, every tent sort of doesn't face the entrance of another tent, so that each family unit is affording privacy to all of their neighbors. And he is so struck with the thoughtfulness with which the Israelites have built their community that that's what causes him to say, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, that there was some specific thing. But Nechama Leibowitz, a modern commentator, she points out that the plain meaning of tovu, of fair, is perfect in all respects. She says it's beauty and charm and simplicity and purity. What she says Balaam is saying as he stands up on that mountain looking down on the Israelites is, these people look perfect. And this is juxtaposed with another text, which is the Haftorah for Parshat Balak. And in the Haftorah, we read maybe equally famous words from the prophet Micah, words that should be familiar to everyone who spent time in the Emanu sanctuary, which were very thoughtfully chosen because of the echoes of Parshat Balak. So I want to look now at that for just a minute and tell you that story. So the first thing that happens in this story is that Micah is on with sort of as the voice of God is railing against the people for abandoning God and for going astray in their morals, for acting amorally. And he gives this heart-wrenching speech where he says, hear what God is saying. This God is making this case in front of the mountains and the hills and pleading for you to hear God. And God says, and it's sort of heartbreaking, my people, what wrong have I done you? What hardship have I caused you? Testify against me. In fact, I didn't do you any wrong. I brought you out of the land of Egypt. I redeemed you from the house of bondage. And I set before you Moses and Aaron and Miriam. My people, remember that Balak, the king of Moab, plotted against you, and how Balaam, son of Beor, responded to him. I saved you from the prophet Balak. So part of the reason that this is the Haftorah for that parsha is that there's this explicit reference to Balak and Balaam. But God is saying, like, all the things I've done for you, you hear the whole brokenhearted parent in this. All the things I've done for you, and you still go astray. I've done nothing wrong, and yet you are turning your back on me. And the Israelites people's response is interesting. They don't get defensive. They say, what should we do to approach the eternal? How can we make this right, they say. But then their answer gets a little weird. They say, should I approach with a burnt offering? Should I make a sacrifice with a calf of a year old? Or would the eternal be pleased with 1,000 rams, with myriads of streams of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for this transgression, the fruit of my body for my sin? So the Israelites are sort of a little overblown with their apology. They start out saying, yes, we should make a sacrifice to God, but then the sacrifice is 1,000 rams, and then they say the most offensive thing you can say to God, should we give our firstborn? And they seem to be doing this act, this sort of performative act of apology. They want God to see how sorry they are, but it's over the top to the point of being like a lot disgusting. And we see that in God and Micah's response. So they are not necessarily interested in correcting their behavior. That's what's important here. They're interested in winning back God's good graces almost at any cost, but they don't seem to be responding to the accusation, which was that there was something wrong in their behavior. And this is where Micah gives his famous response. And he says to them, God has told you, I'm sorry, I didn't correct that. That should the gender neutral of God. But God has told you what is good, ma tov. That same phrase from Balak and Balaam, a subtle reference. We had explicit reference before, but a subtle reference here. God has already told you what to do, and it isn't 1,000 rams, and it isn't certainly offering your children as a sacrifice. But God has told you what God requires of you, and it is only this: that you have to do justice. You have to love mercy or goodness, and you have to walk humbly or modestly with God. Do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. God says, like, God doesn't need from you these overblown sacrifices. God needs from you to behave in a way that is just and merciful and humble. And those words, of course, are on the wall of our sanctuary, and are deeply important in our congregation's understanding of itself. So there's this interesting contrast that the rabbis have set up between this Torah reading and this Haftorah reading, between the way Balaam views the community, which is that he sees them as perfect and pure, and the way Micah sees the community, which is that God has told you how to be tov, has told you how to be perfect and pure, but you are not living up to that expectation. And Rabbi Shai Held describes this as the juxtaposition between a Jewish, the distinction that is being made here is a Jewish view of not yetedness, which is to say that the Jewish understanding of ourselves and of the world is that we live in a constant state of not yet perfect, where we have some responsibility in building that perfection. The Jewish people had, in the time of Micah, started to understand themselves in Balaam's terms, to understand themselves as already perfect. And what Micah is trying to communicate when he uses that same phrase, matov, is he's trying to say you could be perfect, but you have to live up to that possibility. You have to live up to that potential, and you're not there yet. And that it takes constant work and constant striving, and you may never get there, but that's what you're reaching for, is to do what God has already asked of you. God laid out the agenda for how to be perfect, and we are constantly reaching for it. And unlike this sort of non-Jewish priest Balaam, who sees the Israelites as already perfect because they're already blessed by God, Micah says, no, in the Jewish understanding, in the Jewish conceptualization, we are perfect only when we strive to be perfect. There's a great Hasidic story about the student who comes to the Hasidic master and says, Rabbi, who's a good Jew? And the rabbi says, anyone who wants to be. And the student says, really? Anyone who wants to be a good Jew can be a good Jew? And the rabbi says, yes, because anybody who thinks they already are a good Jew isn't a good Jew. But anybody who's striving, there who is a good Jew. So anybody who wants to be. I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about sort of this not yetedness, and I was thinking about America and the promise of America. And I was thinking about that we as Americans also live in a state of not yetedness. We live in this state of, our founding document, the Constitution, makes this claim, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. And I think the distinction between Balaam and Micah is really the distinction about which word in that sentence you choose to focus on. Balaam wants you to focus on the word perfect. But Micah wants you to focus on the word more. Micah, the founding fathers understood when they wrote the Constitution that they were making a more perfect union. It was better than what they had before, but it was not a finished product. It was not perfect, right? And so they wrote, in order to form a more perfect union than what came before, and we, I think, according to this idea of not yetedness, we have the responsibility to continue to make this union more and more perfect. We see it in the Declaration of Independence as well. We see this phrase, this ideal that we are so proud of as Americans. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, right? And we know that is the striving of America. That's the possibility. That's the God has already told you what is good possibility of America. And yet we know that when this was written, that all men are created equal didn't apply to a lot of people. Certainly didn't apply to people who weren't men. And also we know that in the Constitution that some people were counted as 3/5 of another person. And that Black people in particular. And so we have this idea embedded in our sort of sacred texts as a nation of the striving for the possibility of the promise that was made in those texts, and knowing that they weren't finished when they were written. And if you thought that I was done referencing Hamilton, you're wrong, because I love this line from Angelica Schuyler, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. And when I meet Thomas Jefferson, I'm going to compel him to include women in the sequel, right? So we know that there was this promise made of America that wasn't fulfilled at its founding, and that maybe still isn't fulfilled, and that we live as Americans in a state of not yetedness. And we are in the danger that Micah identifies for the Israelites when we start to think that we are already perfect, when we start to think like Balaam, of ignoring what is demanded of us, which is to fulfill that promise. But how, you ask, do we go about fulfilling that promise? That's not easy to do. And I think that the answer to that question is, at least in part, by trying to use the tools at our disposal to maintain our ability to hold that not yetedness, our ability to hold that sense that we are not finished products and that the world in which we live is not a finished product. The psychologist Carol Dweck calls this a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. In a fixed mindset, you say, my qualities are unchanging, my intelligence is unchanging, I am who I am, and that keeps you from being able to learn. But in a growth mindset, you are constantly holding this awareness that you have more to learn, that there's more to do. The Baal Shem Tov comments on this line from the Psalms that says that the Torah is perfect. And the Baal Shem Tov asks, how can the Torah be perfect? The Torah is perfect because we have never even begun to study it. And by that, he means that we are always at the beginning of the process of studying Torah. And so when we engage in acts of Jewish learning, when we read the Torah over and over and over again, every year we start back at the beginning, it is a way of communicating to our souls and our spirits that we are constantly having more to learn. If there was, Judaism doesn't believe you ever have like read the Torah and you're done, because there's always something more to learn. There's always some not yetedness in who we are and who we are becoming. And I would also argue that the task that we are here to do this morning, the task of prayer, which we're here for two tasks, right? We're here for learning, which can contribute to our sense of not yetedness, but prayer also can, because prayer involves the recognition right at the beginning that we are not enough, that we have to surrender some of ourselves to something higher. Prayer is about a partnership that says, I'm going to offer these words and they're going to be wholly insufficient to describe the depth and breadth of my experience as a human being on this earth, to describe my pain and my gratitude and my joy. And I'm asking God to reach out God's hand and meet me halfway, or maybe even do 3/4 of the work to make this work, to make this possible. And Rabbi Shai Held, in talking about this not yetedness in prayer, quotes from the Trappist monk David Thomas Merton, who says, one cannot begin to face the real difficulties of the life of prayer and meditation unless one is first perfectly content to be a beginner, and to really experience oneself as one who knows little or nothing and has a desperate need to learn the bare rudiments. Those who think they know from the beginning will never, in fact, come to know anything. If you enter into prayer with the assumption that you have the answers, prayer isn't going to work for you. Prayer is about entering in with the acknowledgement that you don't have the answers, that you are seeking the answers, that you aren't an expert in prayer, but rather that you are trying, that you are striving, that you are becoming. And so what I would argue and Rabbi Shai Held argues that the process of praying and the process of Jewish learning are important unto themselves, but they are also important because they train our minds to what those who do meditation call the beginner's mind. They train us to what Carol Dweck calls the growth mindset. They train us to think in a way that allows us to know that we are not finished products. And when we are able to accept that we ourselves are not finished products, it's much easier to accept that the world in which we live is not a finished product. So we are given a choice by this morning's texts, by Balaam and Micah, in contradiction and conversation with each other. We are given a choice whether we're going to look out on our lives and on this American experience and say, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, how beautiful, how perfect are your tents, O Jacob. Whether we are going to look at those founding sacred texts, those texts that say that all men are created equal, those texts that say we are striving to make a more perfect union, and we are going to look at those as promises not yet fulfilled, as possibilities we haven't yet achieved, as a tovu, as a goodness, as a perfection in the world that hasn't yet come into reality, and then whether we are going to become the people who fight to make that a reality, who fight to make that possible, to do, as Micah says, by fighting for justice, by bringing mercy into this world, and by walking humbly with the one that inspires us towards something more perfect, more whole, and more beautiful. So on this 4th of July, as we pray for our country, as we pray for our world, as we pray for the health and safety of every person in this congregation, every person we know, every person affected by this pandemic, we are called to be like the words of Micah, called to try and make a more perfect union in ourselves and in our world. And so with that, I think we should read again the Hebrew of the English that I gave you from this week's Torah portion from Parshat Balak. Vayar Bilam ki tov b'einei Adonai livarech et Yisrael v'lo halach kefa'am b'fa'am likrat nachashim v'yashet el hamidbar panav vayisa vilam et einav vayar et Yisrael shochein lishvatav vathir alav ruach Elohim vayishsa mishalo vayomer neum bil'am beno ve'or hagever shetum ha'ayin neum shomea imre el asher machazeh shaddai yechezeh nofel uglu einayim. Here it comes. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. And having now read Torah, having brought Torah into the midst of our lives, we take a moment for some prayers that are of utmost importance to us. And the Misha Berach prayer, the prayer for healing, is of importance to us, even when we are not in a global pandemic, but especially when we are in a global pandemic. And so we are going to offer these words of health and healing. There's a great power in Judaism of naming, of saying out loud what it is that you are praying for. So even though I can't hear you, I want to encourage you to say out loud the names of the people for whom you are praying for healing and strength. As we think of those in our lives who are searching for wholeness, those struggling with addiction, those struggling in recovery, those struggling with pain, the pain we can see and the pain we don't know about, the pain that is chronic and the pain that is time to time, we offer these words of healing and strength.
May the source of strength, oh, bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Yisheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. And let us say Amen.
And speaking of prayers that feel particularly important at this moment, while Torah is in our midst, we want to offer a prayer for our country. The Mishnah, Pirkei Avot, says that we should pray for the welfare of the government. There's an awareness in Judaism that we live at the whim and the will of the society in which we live, and that we have to pray not only for our sort of Jewish thoughts, but also for our secular government as well. And so we're going to offer this prayer. This prayer was adapted in 2002 by my professor from rabbinical school, Rabbi Margaret Wenig, and she adapted it from a prayer that's in Seder Shin Shalom, the conservative prayer book. And this was post 9/11. at the High Holy Days that year. But what struck me in reading it this year was how resonant her words are from 18 years ago. So I want to offer this prayer for our country. Our God and God of our mothers and fathers, we ask your blessing for our country, for its president and his advisors, for officials elected and appointed, for judges and legislators, local and national leaders. Through their words and their deeds, their policies and their allocations, may they help establish in our midst peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom for all. We pray for police officers and firefighters, for security guards and emergency medical workers, for soldiers and sailors in the Air Force, and for our clergy too. Guard them from harm, O God, protect them, shield them, and keep them from misusing the power that resides in their hands. Creator of all flesh, bless all the residents of our land with fruitful and meaningful work. Bless homemakers with the dignity and security they need and deserve. Bless healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, and researchers, lawyers, teachers, and farmers, maintenance and construction workers, engineers and architects, writers, musicians, and artists in every genre with work that will satisfy and sustain them. May all come to believe what some already know, that profit without honesty is worthless in your sight, that market share without social responsibility is an empty goal. Bless workers of all kind with safe conditions and with a living and honorable wage. Help the unemployed and the uninsured, the homeless and the poor to become self-sustaining, and when they cannot, help us to sustain them. May citizens of all ages, races, and creeds appreciate what a great privilege it is to vote and never fail to exercise that sacred right. May lively debate flourish among us, and yet may we forge a common bond to banish hatred and bigotry and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are our country's greatest strength. May our nation consume no more than our fair share of the world's resources and produce no more than our fair share of the world's pollutants. May this land be an influence for good and peace throughout the world, and may we play a positive role in it. And we say together, Amen. Couple of announcements on this Shabbat. First, we want to say thank you to David Tanner for helping us with this service. David is in the background, pulling up slides, muting and unmuting, making sure that we sound and look as good as we can. And we are so grateful to him for being in that background and doing that sacred work. Thank you, David. Our annual 4th of July celebration is headed online tonight. Barbara, you want to say anything about it? She wasn't ready for this. Sorry.
If I can unmute myself. Yes, it promises to be a really fun-filled celebration. We have cooking demonstrations. We have a parade. We have songs. We have all kinds of fun, a scavenger hunt, all kinds of fun for all ages. And I hope you will all join us. Because we're all going to be on Zoom, you need to register. So please go to the Emanu website in order to do that. And I look forward to seeing you at 7 o'clock.
It's going to be the biggest Zoom party this side of the Mississippi. It's going to be great. The digital Mississippi. The other thing that we have coming up on Zoom is Jewish geography Zoom racing is one of the many phenomena born out of this current pandemic, and Emanu will rekindle its friendly rivalry with Stephen Wise Temple in Los Angeles on Sunday, July 12th at 8 p.m. as Rabbi Oren Hayon, this is faces off against Rabbi Sari Leffer, but that's not right. It should say destroys Rabbi Sari Leffer in a competitive game of Jewish geography Zoom racing. Join us on Facebook to support Rabbi Hayon. No registration for that is required. And lastly, a reminder that our clergy team and staff are here for you now and always. If you need pastoral support or assistance from a member of our staff, please don't hesitate to reach out. Let us know what we can do, how we can be a helping hand. As I've been saying lots and lots during this pandemic, we want to help, we're here to help, and we can't help and we don't know that there's a need. So please, please tell us if you have need, because we have the ability to help. With that, we are going to turn our prayers and our thoughts now to a moment of memory and recollection of those who are no longer with us as we prepare ourselves for the mourner's Kaddish. I am Always on the wrong page for that. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, life and death. We take a moment now for silent memory. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who've died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. Our congregation sends out our sympathetic hearts to the family of Naaman Lipinski, who was laid to rest in recent days. As we hold all of these memories in our hearts, we rise together as one community for the words of Mourner's Kaddish, page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, be'alma divrach chirutei ve'almich malchutei, b'chayechon u'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'gala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. V'hei shmei Rabba mivorach le'olam omei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnasei, v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudsha b'richu, le'elam im kol birchata v'shirata, Tush b'chata v'ne'emata, ta'amiram be'amav imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen.
For our closing song this morning, before we do Kiddush and Motzi, by special request made by me, a song for the 4th of July.
This land is
your land.
This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that in the skyway I saw below me the Golden Valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. And to hear the rest of that song, you'll have to come tonight.
Let's do a little Kiddush and Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. L'chaim.
L'chaim Baruch. You know, when you have a glass Kiddush cup, so like unlike my metal Kiddush cup, which you can't tell is empty. Just teasing. I also.
I'll remember that.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited because for the first time since quarantine started, homemade challah.
Oh,
Every week on Friday night, Cantor Simmons lords over us how she has a homemade
Yes.
challah that David made. And finally, payback or
it's
something.
beautiful.
Thank you. I'm quite proud of it.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon.
Really good if I don't say so myself. But now I have to do a benediction. You're stupid. By way of benediction, I wanted to say something about this land is your land, which is that Woody Guthrie wrote This Land is Your Land as a direct response to the song America the Beautiful. And he felt like America the Beautiful ignored the brokenness that needed to be responded to in America. Sorry, not America the Beautiful, God Bless America. And felt like that sort of patriotism didn't reflect the America he saw. His original draft of This Land is Your Land, he called God Blessed America for Me. And it was about how the blessing and promise of America was not distributed equally. And I think that those two songs, God Bless America and This Land is Your Land, live in that same tension of the Balaam and Balak tension, which is the tension that it says, is this a land perfect and blessed by God, or is this a land for you and me that we make and build and co-create together? So my benediction, my blessing, my prayer for us on this 4th of July, on this Shabbat, and in this year of 2020 is that we are like Micah, we are like Woody Guthrie. We understand the promise and the potential is what we build. And we continue to work every day to fulfill that promise. And we say together, Amen.
Amen. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Happy 4th of July. We'll see you online at 7 o'clock. Don't forget to register.